Well, Todd, welcome back to SuperChat.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you on. We've always got some interesting things to share with your stakeholders. You know, as I often do here on the podcast, I like to begin by asking you to provide our listeners with an update on the very latest progress report regarding your master facility plan, the project going on. What do you have to tell your stakeholders? What's happening in that direction?
Yeah, and it's a topic we've talked about repeatedly, but until these new schools open, it's something I'll need to revisit because it is an exciting time here and where we're at. So I just want to keep folks up to date that currently we have set up interviews for our design build contractors. Those interview teams will consist of 2 board members, Chris Heather, Pam Detzel, myself, Chris McKee, our business director, and Amy Wells, our treasurer. We will also have our architect firm, VSWC, work with us in making a selection for our design build contractor. So we've started a committee that is currently meeting. This Wednesday is our 3rd meeting. It consists of 5 teachers and 5 administrators from each building, and then parents and community members. And what we're doing is just the basic POR. And what POR stands for is a program of requirement. And what we need to do is we need to put a program of requirement out there so that when the design build contractor interviews for the position, and then we go back to negotiate a quote for what it would cost, they need to know what the actual classroom size and space looks like. We're looking at special areas of instruction like the art room, music room, physical education room, small group rooms for classroom pullouts, our special education needs, which looks at your multiple disability units, your autism units, and your emotionally disturbed units. So a lot of that goes into the initial design. It doesn't tell you what the building will exactly look like, but it tells you square footage and everything that you need to have. Working with OSFC, this is very important, because their square footage is based on how many students you have and how many square feet you qualify for, but it gives us the opportunity to go a little more in depth. So we will have the design build contractor hired and board approved in March. We're also thinking outside the box. What's instruction going to look like 10, 15, 20 years from now? How will it change? We know that technology is dominating things. We know that online learning is becoming a big piece of it. So we're trying to look at all aspects of that. And then lastly, as I've talked about in 2 or 3 prior podcasts, I just want to remind folks that we are trying to be fiscally responsible. We are looking at site development. We passed the levy in November. When we passed the levy in November, we went out and we told them everything that was going to be involved, 3 new schools and renovations. And we said the 3 sites would be Taylor, Pleasant Run Elementary, and Struble Elementary. Well, after that, we talked to other districts at the end of November and into December, where they were able to build schools and go without passing bond issues. So that led to our investigation and getting involved with OSFC, which is our Ohio School Facility Committee. And what that does is we can build up ELP credit. So if we follow these OSFC guidelines and we build our schools according to their specs, we can get credit. We can earn about $17 million in credit that just goes in a pot for future use. And then we can pull from that pot and use it for K through 8 elementary schools at hopefully Colerain L and Colerain Middle. We have an additional amount of funding that came with passing the bond issue that we can add to that pot of money. And that is around $10 million. So we're sitting at $27 million possibly for a new school K through 8 campus. If we could raise $5 to $7 million more dollars. And if we can do that through exchanging property sites with the township or investigating what we can sell when we build these new schools, then we're going to do that to try to help our taxpayers. But I think all of this I've said in the past. I can tell you that I am getting more and more comments about the podcast. They are coming up to me. They are coming up to AO team members, and they are very appreciative of what you're doing for us. So I really appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, that's quite all right. It's a typical response, I must say, from all the schools we do all over the place, because I just think it's a great communication tool. But, you know, coming back to something you mentioned, Todd, about the looking out 10, 15, 20 years from now and how different education will be and the integration of technology into that entire process, I was just curious as to How does this, what I'll call a blended approach to education, combining technology with face-to-face time, how does that change, or does it change how you look at the size of the classrooms and how the classrooms are set up or equipped? Does that have an impact with that?
Oh, that's a huge impact. And it's very interesting. Some kids learn from teacher-led instruction from the front of the room. Other kids do well in groups, group-oriented projects, presenting presentations. What we're trying to do is model our high school curriculum after what the kids will see in college. We're to the point now where most colleges, you don't handwrite your papers, you type them up, you email them to your professors. If you take a kid absent from school, the way things have changed. Used to, you'd be absent from school, you'd come in the next day, hopefully get your work, and then have a day to make it up. Well, now, if a kid's absent and they have technology at home, they can go and pull up Blackboard, which is a program that we have here in Northwest Local Schools, and they have in most colleges, where you can see what the teacher might have showed video-wise. The video is posted on Blackboard. All their notes are posted on Blackboard. The review sections for a quiz, everything they missed in class is at their hands. But the most important thing is the internet is a resource, and you have thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of millions of resources that they can pull information from. And this is what makes blended education interesting. So our class sizes could increase in our high school. We have blended labs. But what that does is it allows more group and more individual work where students can move at their own pace and not have to wait for others to catch up. So the value of what we can do with education in the next 10 to 20 years, I tell you what, some of my biggest concerns are I don't want it all to become online learning, and I don't want kids to have more opportunity to stay at home, because I think the aspect of talking to people, having the correct social skills, and knowing what it's like to communicate to someone face to face instead of over a phone through an email is still an important piece of our society.
Yeah, it's huge. And it'll always be needed. I mean, it's it's called human interaction. Let me change directions here a little bit. Todd, the state released some important January data about the school districts, and I was wondering if you could tell me about this data reports and how did Northwest Local Schools do in these findings?
Well, there's two sets of data reports that are coming out. One was just released in January, and I'd like to talk about those first. It measured basically four things: K through 3 literacy measures, graduation rate, and prepared for success. So let's look at K through 3 literacy measure. Our district grade in 2013-14, and remember the data is 1 year behind, was a grade of an F. We had 143 of 382 possibility students and only 37.4% passage. For the 2014 and 15, for our third graders, we moved up to a C on the report card. We got 278 of 542. So we improved dramatically in that area. I think it's due to curriculum changes that have been made, some things that we have done district-wide to get parental involvement, to get students engaged and do a better job with what we're doing. So going from an F to a C, we're very proud of that. Our graduation rate for our two high schools, Colerain High School improved in both the 4-year graduation rate and the 5-year graduation rate. Remember, you can't figure a graduation rate. You have to use the past year's data. So the data that I'm talking about, their 4-year high school graduation, is not the 14-15 school year. It's the year prior. Again, these scores were supposed to come out in August or September, but because there are so many issues that I'll go into in a moment with the state and how they reported data, they are behind. But Colerain High School improved from a C in the 4-year and a C in the 5-year to a B in the 4-year and a B in the 5-year. Northwest High School went from a C to B and for the 5-year and a C to C in the 4-year. So overall, both high schools improved, the district improved. The last part is we just have some data. It's called Prepared for Success. It looks at your ACT participation rate. How many of your students did an ACT assessment? 58% of our kids did. How many participated in remediation for the ACT, the SAT? How many students received an honor diploma? How many took AP classes? How many scored an AP exam of 3 or better? So there's no real grades given to those. It's just data that's assessed. So if you look at the first set of data, the big celebrations for us are the K through 3 literacy measure and our graduation rate. Now comes the tough part of what will come out in February. And that will be the value-added data. It will be data for K through 12, what's going on in each grade level during state assessment. So I wanted to bring to everybody's attention how important it's going to be to recognize this data for what it is. I'm going to read some quotes from a Senator Peggy Lehner from Kettering, Ohio. The title of the column from the Columbus Dispatch was New Evaluations to Drop Ohio School State Report Card Scores. Her first statement is the scores will drop. They will drop a lot. It is not to be taken as a sign that anything bad is happening in your school. Portions of the report cards were controversial. They were the park assessments. They were online tests that were given for the first times. There was lots of issues with technology. There was lots of issues with the way the test was presented. The test freezing while students were taking it, students getting locked out of the test. Plus the testing window last year. We started about this time last year and tested through May. You can't test students for 3 to 4 months and expect to get positive results. They've now adjusted that. They've now even opted out of the park. They no longer will use it. So when they decided as the Ohio Department of Education to get rid of it, what did they replace it with? Well, they replaced it with the air. Testing for the air will start in April. It'll end that first week in May. So we've got a very short testing window, and we're not just testing kids over and over and wearing them out. She says she don't expect districts to use the data. The data is not accurate. The data is from a test that no longer exists. So she tries to warn parents and communities to expect achievement to decrease. Even Christopher Woolard from the Ohio Department of Education said this is time to set new expectations. If you're a district with lower grades, it's time to evaluate, but you can expect an achievement decrease, and you need to take it for what it is, a system that was not working correctly. So I don't expect our results to be the best. We will get them about mid-February. February 25th, I believe, is the exact date of release. But we have made some key changes over the past 3 years with our evaluation system, with restructuring our middle schools, our high schools, and our elementaries to get them in a new direction. I think you can see part of it in the K through 3 literacy measure that just came out. Things that we are implementing are going to make a difference, but it is going to take time. But we will move forward. I don't think what's going to come out, I want to be upfront and honest, it's not acceptable. We're in the business of educating kids, and it is our job, no matter what they come from, moving in from another district or from a home where you have 2 caring, loving parents to coming from a foster placement. It doesn't really matter where they come from. Our job is educating kids, presenting graduates who are going to be contributing citizens to our community. So we will look at the data, we will use it for what it is, but we will make changes and we will get where we need to be.
Yeah, I think it is fair to point out that obviously Northwest is, they're not alone in this. This February data is going to impact districts all around the state. And a lot of it has to do with as states rush to these high-stakes tests, I think the move to the air tests away from park is going to reduce the amount of overall test time. But the kinks are not worked out. With the technology failures that happen around the state during this process, screens going blank, freezing up on students, you can't have this be a truly functional process and rely on the integrity of the data, knowing that it's been such a messed up process. And I think the kinks will get worked out of this as time goes on, but I think it's only fair for listeners to realize that when you see this data, hey, don't be shocked, and also know that it's not just Northwest. This is just symptomatic as states go for these really high-stakes tests. And I might be missing a piece, but am I at all on target with that, Todd?
Yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, basically. You've got kids who have, for the first time, were asked to type a paragraph in a little box. And just us seeing the test for the first time, knowing that a first or second grader has to type a paragraph and not knowing how to manipulate it and typing one word and then hitting send and not knowing what's going on. I think the other thing we have to keep a close eye on is education changed in Ohio 5 years ago. At that time, Ohio was 5th in the nation in education. In 5 years, basically aligned when we got a new governor, Ohio has now dropped to the 23rd ranked state. So I think they are as busy as we are trying to figure out what they need to do to improve things.
Yes, and eyes are on it, the problem. So I'm sure that this will get the kinks worked out as time goes on. Something else I wanted to ask you, as you look at your internal MAP data, what kind of progress does it show? And it may be a good idea to remind our listeners just what MAP stands for and just how this data is gathered.
Yeah, our MAP data is a program that will present assessments that are aligned with the curriculum that is being taught in our schools. So what I would encourage parents to do is we have conference nights that will come up in February and March. They can sit down with our teachers. And what's even more impressive, because I see it on a daily basis, is they can bring their students to these conferences, and their student can pull out their folders, and they can show where they chart their own progress, and they can show them where they are. Hey, Mom, here's this assessment we took. And I'm talking grades 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up. They know where they are. And this is a good chance for parents to say, well, even if the test scores aren't where we want them, where's my kid? Where does he or she need to be by the end of the school year? And a teacher can show them the MAP data, and the data will show them where they are on math. So let's take example, maybe they're strong in equations, their number sense is good, but they struggle with fractions. They can show them specifically what's wrong. Let's take reading. If there's issues with a kid's reading, is it recognition of vocabulary? Is it fluency? Is it comprehension? They can tell a parent exactly what specific thing their child needs, and then they can reinforce it at home. So this data, I just met with all principals for the second time this year to look at building data. I can now tell you that we are having huge gains and successes in all our buildings. We are moving forward. We know that the MAP data is correlated at about the 90th percentile in relating to state mandated tests. There is a significant achievement in that they are matched, they are aligned. It is good data you can trust. So we're excited about that.
Oh, that's wonderful. I wanted to also ask you if you could comment or offer up some information about your College Credit Plus program.
High school conferences are coming up at both high schools. They will have a very important meeting on College Credit Plus. If you think of what is it similar to, think of AP classes. The difference, though, AP classes, you take the class, you take the AP test, and depending on how you score, you get college credit or you don't. College Credit Plus is where we've got partnerships with local colleges, and our teachers are college credited or certified to teach college courses. So the rigor is very high. It is identical to what they will see on college once they enter their freshman year. Most importantly, it's free. The only reason it's not free is if the student doesn't pass the class, then they have to pay for the class. But for every time they pass a College Credit Plus course, that goes to their and will transfer to the college of their choice. So you could have kids graduating with 30 to 40 credits and basically be a sophomore plus starting college if they take as many of these classes as they can.
Yeah. These are excellent transitions that have been taking place in recent years, these dual college credit courses that are offered. What about your National Signing Day? Are you prepared at all to say anything about that?
Yeah, we started. I got the privilege of starting today meeting Nicole Rain students. They were at 7 a.m. Northwest High School will be at 2 p.m. this afternoon. To me, it's just these parents should be glowing. It says so much about a young man or a young woman that you can not only manage your academics and achieve a high enough ACT score and a GPA to get accepted in a college, but to earn academic scholarships and a combination of athletic scholarships is just amazing. Parents spend so many hours running them to AAU basketball games, running them around to football camps, running them to soccer camps and junior Olympics and all the things they have to do with all these athletics. I think volleyball ends somewhere around December, and then they have JO volleyball basically from February, March, April, May, and June. So the dedication and the emphasis that the parents have put on, one, their academics, and two, how do you balance your academics with having a practice? And on top of that, some of these kids go to school, go to practice, then they go to work just to help out at home. So it is just an honor to be a part of these ceremonies. I am so proud to see the type of kid that is receiving these scholarships, whether they be athletic or academic, but it says a lot about them that they have the maturity to balance everything that needs to be to achieve these awards.